I'm asked a lot about desert Bigfoot. Being that I live in the Phoenix area, it seems kind of strange that I investigate Bigfoot, but Bigfoot is really all over the state. I don't think they're limited whatsoever to any kind of weather or elevation or resources. Here in the desert, I live right beside a very big, I think it's the biggest municipal park in America. And we have mountain lions, we have coyotes, we have javelina, which are like wild boars. We have quail, lots of quail, bunnies, jackrabbits, you name it. There's lots of resources here. There's also all kinds of sources of water here as well. And anywhere that a Native American could call home and survive and thrive, then these hidden people can do as well. The fact that they're covered in hair doesn't really mean much. Coyotes are covered in hair, and they're all over the desert. That's not important, really. One thing we do know about Bigfoot is they seem to be able to survive in almost any climate. And anybody who tells you they migrate because of weather, they're not snowbirds. They are very tolerant genetically. They're tolerant to any kind of weather. They can be in Alaska, they can be in Florida. It doesn't matter to them. They're built quite differently than we are. Saying that, I will tell you a little bit about desert Bigfoot. Bigfoot's been reported on the fringe of the greater Phoenix area, around the Gila River and the Salt River. And I've done some investigations on people that have reported boulders being thrown at them, something inhabiting bamboo stalk areas, chattering, screaming. Some people have viewed them. Some people even report that they've tried to shoot at them before. And it's quite possible that they follow the canal systems and the rivers here, and they find plenty. Our rivers are just loaded with fish. And like I said, all that other wildlife. So they are in the desert, and I think it's kind of naive to think that they have a certain climate. They don't. They're just like us. We can live anywhere. And when we were indigenous peoples of the earth, we did live anywhere without, shelter, air conditioning, and all that stuff. So they're just the same in that aspect of being able to adapt to wherever they are and be able to live outdoors fairly. Now, in the desert, there's one particular Bigfoot that's really kind of interesting to me. He's called Yucca Man, and he comes from the Mojave Desert in California, around 29 Palms and Joshua Tree Monument area. And I had actually in the 80s, this is before the internet, so all I knew about Bigfoot at the time was I had seen the Patterson film when I was a child, and the Boggy Creek movie. And to me, they were just somewhere in the Northwest. They certainly weren't running around the desert, and they certainly weren't very man-like. They were apes. At least that's the way they were presented to me. So here I am in the 80s. I'm pregnant, and I'm camping out in Joshua Tree. And we picked a site that was very remote, away from any of the regular campsites or anything. And it was surrounded by a ridge, and on the ridge during the night you could actually see the silhouettes of the trees and the Joshua trees and the bushes. And I mean, the night sky was bright enough that it was very easy to see things around. I had to get up a lot during the night because I was pregnant, so I had to pee all night. So every time I would get up, I would have my back to the tent, and I would look out to the ridge just to see if anything's coming, because I had been listening to the coyotes come and go, and they would move on to another location screaming, and then they would come back around, and sometimes they'd come right on the ridge, and it was so loud I thought they were like outside the tent. But they were probably 75 yards, 50 yards away, something like that. So I'm sitting there doing my business, and I looked up, and on the ridge, the coyotes had come dancing and screaming up there, and they were really worked up this time, really, really loud. And then from them, I saw something move, and I thought it was like one of them joining them, but it was actually the head of a figure, walking on two legs, coming up the backside of that ridge and standing on the ridge, kind of staring down at the camp, it seemed like. I was facing the camp. But he was quite large, quite large. When I saw the coyotes around him, they looked more like house cats. And this thing, the shoulders were just tremendous. It was so broad, but I didn't see any kind of like winter coat or anything I should have expected to see on somebody at night there. And it just stood there. And my reaction was, get in the tent. So I got in the tent, and my mind was just buzzing. Okay, this thing is standing there with coyotes, and they're very worked up, but they seem more like they're house dogs than, some sort of enemy or threat. And so then I heard the coyotes take off, and they went back down the same pattern they were doing earlier. So I looked out the tent, and he was gone, and the coyotes were gone. But it resonated with me that I had seen something I couldn't explain. And if that was a person, he was tremendously built, without equipment, in a place where there were no other campsites. And the coyotes didn't seem to mind his presence, which was what really got me. And it wasn't until many years later, when I started researching Bigfoot, that I came across that there were ones in the desert. And then I started getting reports from people locally who said, yeah, I grew up here and I was walking along the canal to go fishing in Buckeye, at Buckeye, Arizona, and I came right up to one. I mean, like 6 feet away. We both startled each other. And I get a lot of reports of people that, up on the rim where it's high elevations and there are vast forests in the Mogollon Rim, sort of in the central area of Arizona. That area has a lot of reports. In fact, they call it the Mogollon Monster. But here in the Phoenix area, people don't talk about it. But if you talk to old-timers, they're more likely to have seen them back when there was a lot of agriculture around the outskirts of town and there was a lot of water resources. So yeah, there is desert Bigfoot. Anywhere you can put a man and the man can live fairly, these guys can live.